Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. We're going to range far tonight. We're going to start with the Monopoly Thimble, which has died at the age of 82. For those of you too young to remember, a thimble is one of those little metal cups that you put on your finger or thumb when you're sewing so you don't stab your finger, but not that many people sew these days, so they're a little unfamiliar with it. In 1935, when Parker Brothers introduced the board game Monopoly in a version that we know today, one of the tokens they introduced was the thimble. So you had your top hat, you had your Scotty, you had your Roadster, you had a couple more. But in a recent crowdsourcing survey, they voted the thimble off the island. Here's a report on the end of the thimble as a Monopoly game board token.
There has been a tragic loss in the world of Monopoly. The iconic thimble will not pass go and is being removed to make way for a new game piece, as voted on by fans. Last month, Hasbro rolled the dice and gave the internet the power to decide which game tokens stay and which new ones join the classic game. 4 million votes were cast during the month-long contest, where people could choose to keep the current pieces, like the top hat or shoe, or bring in a new token from 50 other options. Some were tech-centric, like a cell phone, a hashtag, or emoji faces, but most were just quirky, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex and fuzzy bunny slippers. Hasbro is not revealing which new pieces won the contest. We have to wait until March 19th for the made-up holiday of World Monopoly Day to find out which token is replacing the thimble in the next generation of the game, and that new game will be sold in stores this August. The thimble may have lost its shine with modern players, but the sewing tool was very common when the game first came out in 1935. Hasbro is not closing the door completely on any game piece making a return, but if you want to grab the thimble before it's gone, there is a Monopoly Token Madness edition that has 8 current tokens and 8 of the new contenders. I'm calling it now. If the hashtag token wins, there is going to be rioting. I'm Bridget Carey. For the latest news, go directly to cnet.com. Do not pass go, do not collect $200.
Thanks, Bridget, for that hard-hitting report. Well, we're going to move on now to Admiral Richard Lyon, who died recently at the age of 93, and he was the first SEAL to become an admiral in the United States Navy. He was good enough to qualify for the Olympics as a swimmer in 1940. They didn't hold those games. He was a general badass in World War II and in Korea. He was one of the first people to land on Japan's mainland after the atomic bomb blast. He graduated from Yale and from Stanford. He was a demolitions expert during the Korean War. As I said, he eventually became an admiral, and he also became the mayor of Oceanside, California. So Richard Lyon was quite a guy, and here's NBC News on A Life Well Lived, featuring Richard Lyon.
This week, we highlight another life well lived, and what a life Admiral Richard Lyon lived. A California native, Dick Lyon, made the United States Olympic swimming team in 1940 as a teenager, but the Tokyo Games were canceled because of World War II. While attending midshipmen's school in New York, he saw a poster looking for strong swimmers to join a new special warfare unit performing underwater demolition. Lyon joined the Scouts and Raiders, forefathers to the modern Navy SEALs, sneaking into enemy waters to blow up mines in the Pacific. He's believed to be one of the first American commandos to push into Japan after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. After World War II, Lyon served as an intelligence officer, assigned to spy on Mao's Revolutionary Army in China. He later fought in the Korean War, blowing up mines, tunnels, and railroads deep behind enemy lines. A graduate of both the National War College and the Naval War College, Lyon was the first special warfare admiral in the history of the Navy and a legend among SEALs. Later in life, Lyon founded Children's Hospital of Orange County and served 2 terms as mayor of Oceanside, California, where he also was president of the school district. Lyon's life in the water continued well after the Navy. He still was winning body surfing competitions into his 70s. Admiral Richard Lyon, who served the country for all of his adult life, died in California. He was 93 years old.
We're going to move on now to Mike Ilitch, who died recently at the age of 87. And Mike Ilitch is a legend in Detroit, although not everybody's on board with that legend. But let's stay with the official story for the time being. Mike Ilitch was a nice Macedonian boy born in Detroit, Cooley High School, and he went on to found Little Caesars Pizza. This eventually made him one of the richest guys in America, and he put a lot of his wealth back into 2 things: the real estate in Detroit and his sports ventures, which included the Detroit Red Wings and the Detroit Tigers. He made successes out of both teams, especially the Red Wings, who'd been down for a long time. They won 4 Stanley Cups under his ownership when they were led by Steve Yzerman and Sergei Fedorov. They didn't do too badly with the Tigers either. They won 2 American League pennants. They lost twice in the World Series, so he never won a World Series with the Tigers. Put up some new stadiums, some new theaters, and he was involved in the revitalization of Detroit in the last 20 years. Here's a Detroit television report on Mike Ilitch.
42 years. The Red Wings had not celebrated a Stanley Cup championship in 42 years. In 1997, the long wait ended, and everybody in white jerseys that night coined the phrase we heard for decades. We did it for Mr. I. Mike Ilitch was a fan. He was a wildly successful businessman, but he was a fan. And he wanted to see his teams win just as badly, if not more, than you and I. He brought big names to town, some with huge contracts, some with little fanfare. The first step was drafting a kid from Cranbrook, British Columbia, named Steve Yzerman. Over the years, that kid became the captain, and that team became a rallying cry. The city became Hockey Town, and Ilitch was the leader, writing checks, but passionately driving for success as well. In that summer of '97, the Stanley Cup parade seemingly lasted for days. But less than a week after all the joy, one crash changed everything. The theme the next year, Believe. And after the Red Wings worked to honor their teammates, another cup went into the air, and it landed in Vladdy's lap. Ilitch didn't stop. 2002, a team of Hall of Famers, another cup. The whole time, another passion was stirring, another driving force jittering in his heart. The Tigers needed fixing. They needed star power. So, like he always did, he opened his wallet, one by one. Pudge Rodriguez, Maglio Ordonez, Miguel Cabrera, Prince Fielder, Torrey Hunter. The list went on. And the trips to the playoffs, once a thought to laugh at, became the norm. The joy evident on Ilitch's face. The Fall Classic. Of course, that World Series title, the one last gift players all said they wanted to give, they wanted to do all of it for Mr. I. While he leaves without that title, there's no doubt he also leaves a legacy and a mark as a sports owner we will never see the likes of again. Truly one of a kind. Mike Ilitch tonight. The sports world says thank you for a long line of memories, a lifetime of memories for so many generations.
So many generations. And Detroit says thank you.
Yeah.
He really changed the shape of our city.
Well, as I said, Ilitch built Comerica Park for the Tigers, a lot of other real estate in Detroit, saved a lot of neighborhoods, did a lot of other philanthropy. The critics said that he took advantage of a lot of tax breaks and played fast and loose with some of the real estate deals, but you're always going to have critics like that. I will say this, and here's your Mike Ilitch trivia, that in the last years of her life, Rosa Parks' rent was paid completely by Mike Ilitch. She had some trouble with housing in Detroit after she moved from the South, and he took care of everything for her. So the people in Detroit can sort out the Mike Ilitch legend for the rest of us. We're going to move on to our feature now, Norma McCorvey, who died recently at the age of 69. You probably don't know her as Norma McCorvey. You may know her better as Jane Roe, and she was involved as the plaintiff in one of the most important legal cases of the 20th century. She was a nice Catholic girl born in Louisiana who moved to Dallas, and by the time she was 22, she was pregnant with her third child. She sought an abortion, which at the time was illegal in Texas, and she was referred to some lawyers who wanted to make it the test case for the legality of abortion in the United States. And so Norma McCorvey, a.k.a. Jane Roe, became the plaintiff in Roe v. Wade. Wade, by the way, was Henry Wade, the district attorney of Dallas, who was also prominent in the Kennedy assassination, but that's a story for another day. The case wound through the courts for nearly 3 years. She had already given birth by this time, obviously, until it was decided by the Supreme Court in January of 1973. And here is Howard K. Smith from ABC News announcing the results.
The Supreme Court today ruled that abortion is completely a private matter to be decided by mother and doctor in the first 3 months of pregnancy. The 7-2 ruling to that effect will probably result in a drastic overhaul of state laws on abortion. Specifically, the court today overturned laws in Texas and Georgia and ruled the government has no right to enter into a decision which should be made by the mother and her doctor. During the second 3 months of pregnancy, it ruled, a state may regulate abortion procedures, but only to ensure the safety of the mother. And in the last 3 months, whatever state laws say prevails. Laws in 17 states may be affected by that ruling.
Well, on this show, we're certainly not going to debate the merits of Roe v. Wade. Suffice it to say that the decision has resonated throughout the country for the last 5 decades and continues to do so. Regarding Norma McCorvey, it's sort of sad to say it, but it looks like she was used by both sides in the abortion debate at one time or another as a sort of a pawn. And here's the Washington Post to tell you a little bit of the Norma McCorvey story.
Norma McCorvey was better known as Jane Roe, the pseudonymous plaintiff in the monumental Supreme Court case Roe v. Wade. But she never found an easy fit as a poster girl, either for the abortion rights movement or for the anti-abortion movement, which she embraced in her later years. When she challenged Texas abortion laws in 1970, she was 22, trapped in a life of poverty and addiction, and facing her third pregnancy. When the Supreme Court ruling came down in her favor in 1973, she had already given birth and placed her child for adoption.
I never had the right to choose.
By her own description, McCorvey was a simple woman with a 9th grade education who just wanted a safe and legal abortion. What she got was a ruling that changed the course of reproductive rights in America. After fully shedding her anonymity, she used her connection to the abortion rights fight to further that cause, working with clinics and advocates. But she grew to feel isolated and abandoned by the movement, which never moved her to its forefront.
I've been shunned by quite a few of the national leaders in the pro-choice movement. I really get this really strong hit that people think that I'm just like totally stupid, and I'm not. I mean, I've got brains and I have ideas, and I just don't really feel like they hear me. So, I mean, I wasn't their chosen one to be their special Jane Roe.
In 1995, she moved to the other side of the abortion debate, declaring herself a born-again Christian, and found herself again in the headlines.
We forgive you in Jesus' name. Yes.
She spent recent years speaking out against abortion and attending pro-life rallies.
How many of us want to see Roe versus Wade overturned?
Anti-abortion rights activists regarded her reversal as a victory for their cause, but even in that camp, McCorvey felt out of place. She will be remembered as a complicated woman who found herself at the heart of the fight around reproductive rights for decades, but who never really found a home on either side.
I think it's safe to say that Norma McCorvey was an unwitting small actor on a much larger stage of American history. And personally, I can't help but feel a little bit of pity for her for being in the middle of all that. Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps, and we're going to close tonight with Al Jarreau, who died recently at the age of 76. Al Jarreau was a jazz singer who's best known for 2 songs. He was a nice African-American boy born in Milwaukee. He learned to sing in church, but it was mostly a hobby for him. He went to Ripon College and got a degree in vocational rehabilitation. Then he moved out to the West Coast and started doing more jazz gigs. The jazz was a little softer out on the West Coast, so he fused it with R&B and pop, to the consternation of some of the jazz purists. But as I said, he had 2 huge mainstream hits. One was the theme for a television show, the 1980 show Moonlighting, starring Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd, which was very popular in its time. Here's a little bit of Al Jarreau's well-known theme song for that show.
Walk the night, come by my name, something is sweeter, 'cause we met on the way. We'll walk the night, we'll fly by day, moonlighting stranger, just met on the way.
Well, Al Jarreau won 7 Grammy Awards, most notably for his album Breaking Away in 1982, for which he won the Grammy Award for Best Pop Male Vocal Performance. And it contained this song, which was his biggest hit. It went to number 15 on the Billboard 100. As you can hear, it's not quite jazz, but it was a big hit in the United States and an even bigger hit in Canada. So as our final tribute to Al Jarreau, here's his 1982 hit, We're in This Love Together.
We're in this love together. We got the kind that lasts forever.